Hi, I'm Madison Millanes, and I'm in composition and reading one, and my professor is Dr. Warren. So, my title is, Does Your Sport Consume You? The Consequences on College Athletes' Mental Health. Introduction. Collegiate athletes face mental health issues, including anxiety and depression, which can negatively affect performance as well as their academics. Sports play such a large role in their lives to the point where it can become all they base their identity and self worth off of, which can lead to more burnout, lowered self esteem, more anxiety, and higher depression rates. Accessibility to treatment options has been hard to find in the past, but research is showing there are new outlets such as virtual peer support for college athletes to get help with their mental well being. So here's my overview of the topics I'll be going through in order. First, sports creating anxiety in athletes. I'm going to talk about how um, sports can create cognitive anxiety in college level athletes, and also how that affects their daily life, how it affects their gameplay, all that type of stuff. I'm also going to talk about anxiety affecting academics, which is something that is very important due to the fact that college level athletes have scholarships that rely on their academics. So that has a very important hold over their life. And then next, I'll talk about athletes' self worth and identity. This is very important because um, athletes tend to have their whole world revolve around their sport, and this can create a lot of issues that I'll talk about. And then next, burnout after many years. This is something very common in high level athletes because they have been playing a certain sport for so long, and burnout can be increased. Like the chances of it can be increased due to mental health issues. So I'll talk about that. And then next, performance and team atmosphere, how anxiety and depression affect performance, and how that can affect team atmosphere as well, which is a huge topic. And then lastly, possible solutions for this issue. I'll dive into that and how we can help these athletes. Next, sports creating anxiety. Student athletes have an immense amount of pressure put on them from many different aspects. This includes coaching, fans, teammates, family members, pressure put on athletes from themselves, which is very, very common and seen. Athletes like create really big expectations, or they have really big expectations put on themselves, and this creates anxiety and a lot of stress on them of living up to these expectations. um a quote that I found from an article about college softball players, and how their anxiety can be increased or decreased when at the plate, like at bat. So the quote I found states that individuals compare their desired performance with expected capabilities. If this comparison is negative, it will result in cognitive anxiety. And if it's positive, it will result in higher confidence and motivation. This is important because it's a real world scenario, like a real example of how um, like sports can worsen anxiety. If let's say a softball player were to strike out, it would result in cognitive anxiety and just like fear and just kind of thoughts of um just stress and anxiety. And this can be relevant to all sports, not just softball, not just baseball. It can be relevant to volleyball, it can be relevant to football, basketball, like shooting a free throw. Like that's so much pressure, everyone just watching you, all that type of thing. It can be very common in a lot of different sports. So I thought that was a really good example of how sports put pressure and anxiety on people. Next, anxiety's effect on academics. This is very important because um college student athletes have scholarships that rely on their grades and their performance. That right there is just an example of how much stress and pressure is put on them from two very big parts of their life. Um, so a quote that I found from an article discussing this was that college student athletes whose scholarship status may depend on maintaining minimum academic standards, the impact of mental health issues on academic performance is of great importance. This is basically what I just said, but just another example. Um, because it just talks about how important it is. Because if let's say an athlete has um, poor mental health, like that can affect their academic performance as well as their physical performance in their sport. Um, just there's a lot of pressure of perfect grades that come with being the perfect athlete as well, and that's kind of hard to balance. So we need to find a way to um, help athletes balance both of this. Sorry. Next, self-worth and identity. Um, Going along with what I just said, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations of performance that are set for athletes, and this can result in a lot of stress and the fear of not living up to the expectation that is set for you, which is commonly found in a lot of different sports at the high level. Athletes, I also found, and after doing a lot of research, I found that athletes experience withdrawal symptoms after not participating in sports for a certain amount of time. Usually, when they have an injury, they experience withdrawal symptoms after not playing because their sport is their life. It is all they have to do, and that's very important and can be toxic and a little unhealthy. Um, Mental health levels, I also found uh, mental health, like the issues in mental health, increase after experiencing defeat just because of all the stress and emotional turmoil that can be experienced after a hard loss. Next, burnout in college athletes. Here's a quote I found that kind of describes what burnout is. It's a condition in which an athlete experiences fatigue and declining performance in his or her sport despite continuing or increased training. Overtraining can result in mood changes, decreased motivation, frequent injuries, and infections. This is very important because this is a lot of what college athletes have to deal with. They deal with very heavy loads of training, and that can be a lot for someone when they already have so much other things to balance on their plate. And this can lead to burnout after so many years of doing the same sport, like playing volleyball for like 12 years, 10 years, like that can be a lot of pressure. That can be a lot, like it comes to a point where athletes just break. And having poor mental health increases the chances of burnout very much. I also found an article that said single sport athletes versus multi sport athletes. Um, Single sport athletes have higher chances of getting burnout in their sport compared to multi-sport athletes. And this was due to single sport athletes having more focus on just one sport instead of spreading it out through various sports. And then yes, higher stress or more stress does mean higher chances of burnout because it does come to a point where the athletes do break and they need a place to vent, and they're just kind of going in the same cycle over and over, which can be very unhealthy as well. Next, performance and team atmosphere. So here's a quote that I found, stating that mental health concerns could affect their connections to teammates and coaches and ultimately affect sport performance. For example, a women's soccer player wrote, "If they're having problems, they won't talk to teammates, keep to themselves, not perform good." This is very important because um, isolation with teammates when one is having a personal issue can be very hard because then it creates this toxic team environment, which can be very unhealthy, um, and create more issues. Like not performing well is kind of why you're doing what you're doing. Like you're doing it to play your sport, the game that you have passion for. And when you start performing bad and then start treating your teammates bad, but really just because you have a personal issue, that can create a downhill spiral, which can be a huge problem in high level athletes that we need to really focus on finding a way for athletes to feel like they can open up instead of holding all of their emotions in and not having anyone to vent to or anywhere to get help with this issue before it gets to a point where they have to stop playing their sport because they don't feel welcome to open up. And then some possible solutions. Mood Lifters is an online program that I found that increases accessibility to mental health care. It's a peer-led support group. So like other athletes that are struggling are helping um, athletes that have these issues, and it kind of gives them a way to vent to each other and reach out for help. And it's a new uh, option or a new program that helps athletes. These peers go through these trainings that basically um, help struggling athletes process their emotions better and feel seen, feel heard. And then another possible solution is just counselors on campus advertising themselves more to student athletes and not just regular students at the school, because student athletes do have issues too. And they're not just athletes, they're more than that. And then conclusion, anxiety and depression worsen in many aspects of student athletes' lives, and it's a serious issue that needs to be helped. The more people talk about and accept athletes' issues, the more they will open up. If we're talking about being more accepting, athletes are gonna feel like they're welcome to open up and talk about their problems, and that's what's really important. Because if they don't, they'll drop out of school, they'll stop playing their sport, they'll go through these withdrawal symptoms when they're too young. They can keep playing and keep enjoying their sport. Um, Resources such as mood lifters can benefit athletes' mental health. And also, in order for athletes to achieve more, we must prioritize mental health once again. And I think this is very, very important and a topic that needs to be discussed more in order for there to be change in it. So, yeah, just think about it the next time that you're watching a high level college athlete, and think about their mental health behind all the pressure that comes with being that athlete out on the court, on the field, whatever it may be. There's more to it than just playing the game. There's a lot that they have to deal with on their plate as well. So, yeah, we're excited. Thank you.